Take care. Keep in touch if you need. All right. Hello, everybody. After this class, there's a class in the stories and customs holidays of Purim. You're welcome to join us for that. Parsha facts. This week is Parshat Tetzaveh. I'll tell you what it says on it. So this has Tetzaveh means command. It's in the book of Shemos, Exodus. It's chapter 7, verse 20 through chapter 30, verse 10. It's pages 464 through 483. Number of verses is 101. There's 7 commandments, 4 positive and 3 negative. Now, one thing I neglected, which I should have put onto this sheet, is that this week we also take out a second Sefer Torah scroll. If a shul has 2 Torah scrolls, we take out 2, because besides being Parshat Tetzaveh, it is also Parshat Zachar. Parshat Zachar is an extra reading that we have for this time of the year for remembering the nation, the wicked nation of Amalek. The wicked nation of Amalek attacked the Jewish people unprovoked, and we remember them ideally, if we could, if we knew who they were and we had the power, we should wipe them out because they were a wicked nation. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. But so that's what's going to happen is it's one of 4 special readings that we have during this time of the year. We had 2 weeks ago, we had Parsha Shkolim, the donations of the half shekel, which we're going to read about in next week's Torah portion. But we're going to do an extra reading besides the regular reading. We're going to do. They signed in already. Thank you, Mari. We do the reading for Parshas Zachar. And why do we read Parshat Zachar this coming Shabbos? Because it's the Shabbos before Purim. So what does that have to do with it? Because in the story of Purim, which we're going to find out about at 12:30 today, God willing, we have the antagonist Haman, the wicked Haman, who is, that's correct, the wicked Haman, who is a descendant of Amalek, the nation that tries to wipe out the Jewish people. And I think when we talk about Parshat Zachar, we have to talk about words that are lost in modern vernacular. The concept of right and wrong and holy and impure are words that people don't use today because it's right and wrong. It's subjective. It's what you think and what I think. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. And that's not a good thing for the world, because if we have moral clarity, then we can have clear opinions about what is right and wrong. And that's why it's important that in Judaism we understand that there is this thing called Parshat Zachar, and there was a wicked nation of Amalek, and they were wicked. I'll never forget, I had a neighbor of mine that had a book about the Volkswagen company. Volkswagen is?
German.
It's a German car. And she showed me something. I was like, though history doesn't treat Hitler favorably, he was once riding in a car and it was raining outside, and he saw that there was a man riding a bike in the rain. And he said, we have to create an inexpensive car for the folk, for the common folk. Therefore, Volkswagen, like folk wagon. So it doesn't mention anything about him, but all of a sudden you see Hitler was a bleeding heart because the guy was in the rain on the bike. What about everything else he did? It's totally different. It's a totally different context. I would look at the book. I just, if I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't believe it. The history doesn't say nice things about Hitler, but he was really deep down a good guy. It reminds me of the old joke about Hitler is in his bunker and he really survived, and he's preparing the Fourth Reich, and he says, "But this time, no more Mr. Nice Guy." It's just like. So I'm just saying. So this idea of learning a vocabulary of right and wrong and holy and impure is a very, very important thing in Judaism, and that doesn't mean it's always clear, and that's why we have to have moral clarity, and that's why you have to have people to go to ask, what is the right thing, what is the wrong thing. I can give you examples, but for another time, maybe. Just a simple example would be just like charity, not every charity is equal from a Jewish perspective. In other words, saving the whales might be a nice thing. I don't know, but I think saving humans should be first. It's a mild example. But be that as it may, okay. So we start the Parsha, and it says, Va'ata Tetzaveh, and you should command. Who's it talking about? Who should command? No, who's telling the Lord to command? The Lord is talking. What? Moses. Moses should command. Okay. So let's talk about the placement of Moshe's name, Moses' name. Is Moshe's name found anywhere in the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis?
No.
Why not?
He wasn't born yet.
Oh, he wasn't born yet. Is it found anywhere in the book of Shemos? Book of Exodus?
If I remember, you know.
What?
If I remember right, no.
In the book of Exodus? Many times, right? How about the book of Vayikra, Leviticus?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
In Bamidbar, in Numbers. Yes.
Yes.
The Varim, not that much, because Moshe is the one talking. But the only portion that doesn't have Moshe's name, besides when he wasn't alive, but when he was talking, is this week's Parsha, Parshat Tetzaveh, which is an interesting thing. Why is Moshe's name missing? Well, something like that. But let me tell you a little bit, let me fill in a little bit more accurately what happened. What happened was, we're going to find out next week. All right. Here, got a Parsha facts for you. It's next week, so you're early. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So what happened is, remember Dave? They threw him out of Israel. They kicked him out. They kicked him out.
My son Dan. I don't see what happened to you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. He's running for office. It's nice. They have to shake their hands. In any event, okay. No, if I had someone who was paying for advertising, we could have breaks in the middle and, make some money on the side and they could socialize. But in any event, getting back to this, so why is Moshe's name not in this week's portion? So what happens is, in next week's portion, he is going to plead for the Jewish people when they make a mistake with the golden calf, which we'll talk about, God willing, next week. And Moshe says that if you're going to destroy the Jewish people, take me out of the book. I don't want to be in the Chum. I don't want to be here. Take me out. I quit. I'm out. Remove me from the Torah. So we have to understand the words have consequences, even for especially from righteous people. And therefore, Hashem said, you wanted to be out of the book? Well, I did listen to you and I saved the Jewish people and I gave them another chance to repent, but I'm going to take you out of one portion. So sort of like, you got your wish, you're out of the book. So the question is, why this week's portion? out of all the portions, did Hashem take Moshe's name out? So I'm going to give you several different interpretations. Number one, this coming week has the 7th day of Adar, which is when Moshe was born and Moshe died. So that is Moshe's birthday and day of death. Moshe said the words, "Mecheni no misifreich," take me out of your sefer, out of your book. And the commentary says it's Mesefer Chaf, from the 20th book, which if you count the portions from the beginning, this week's Parsha is the 20th portion. So there's a little allusion to that in there. Another one is that it relates to the Kohen Gadol, to high priest. And that a little bit is related to Moshe, because Moshe really was supposed to be the high priest. But when Hashem asked him so many times that he should go down to Egypt, he didn't want to, let Aaron go, let this, I can't go, my speech. So Hashem took away the high priesthood from him and gave it to his brother Aaron. So this parsha deals with the clothing of the high priest, so he's out of that parsha. So that's a third reason. And a very beautiful fourth reason is that it's a compliment to Moshe, not a punishment. Because why did Moshe want to be out of the book? To try to save the Jewish people, right? That was his motivation. And Hashem says, you know what? You self-negated yourself so much, the Torah is going to be from you. Parshat Tetzaveh, and you should command as if you'll become part of the Torah. So it's not Moshe the individual anymore, but Moshe is, if you will, blended in to be part of the Torah, and he's commanding the Jewish people. So it's some very nice different interpretations about that. So Moshe is not in the Parsha, but let's talk about what the Parsha is talking about. The Parsha talks about the lighting of the menorah. How many lights did the menorah have? Trick question. I feel like I'm at an auction. 6, 7, 8. We had 9, 10. 7. It had 7. Okay. 8 is the Hanukkah menorah, which is a different story, related to this, but not totally related. But it is 7, and there's no helper light, so it's not 6 plus 1, but it's totally 7 that they lit every night. 7 lights, and they used pure olive oil, and the olive oil had to be very pure. It had to be the first drops that came out from when they squeezed the olives. The rest of the oil they could use for other things, but for the menorah, it need to be pure. Interestingly enough, the Jewish people are compared to oil. Why? Number one, oil doesn't mix well with other liquids. It rises to the top. Ideally, that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be different and keep our identity and float to the top when we're at our best. And oil is used to illuminate, and that's what we're supposed to use the Torah mitzvahs for, to illuminate, to be a light unto the nations. And oil also comes with pressure. Sometimes, to be the best that we can be, we need to feel a little bit of pressure. One of the commentators says a very nice thing. The oil of menorah, which represents the intellect, that's something we have to be very careful that it's pure. People are very used to thinking, well, I have to make sure my food is kosher, which is true, but you have to also make sure the food for the mind is kosher too. That it's pure and holy and and doesn't taint us. Shem, I had a person who asked the question. They're not here this week, but someone asked last week, did God really tell us not to mix milk and meat? I said, yeah. And my question I was going to pose is, do you believe that God said give money to the poor? And what do you think she would have said? Sure. But you don't believe God said mix milk and meat. So you don't believe in God, you believe in yourself, believe in what your belief system is. If it matches it, then you say, oh, God's great. But if it doesn't match, then, well, I don't know, did God really say that? So that's an important idea for us to be cognizant of. So what's the word that's used when the lighting of the menorah is tamid, which means constant. Like in shul, we have a ner tamid. There's a light at the front of the shul that is always on. Even if we turn all the lights off, that light remains on. So where is there the menorah is ner tamid? It's lit all the time, and tamid also means consistent, and that's an important idea to be consistent in our observance. And what that means is we need to find mitzvahs and do them, even when it's inconvenient. We want to be consistent. I was back east a few weeks ago for my grandson's bar mitzvah, and it was cold. And I don't mean LA cold. I told you, the boys in my class said, Rebbe, it was 50 degrees in the morning. Rebbe, it's like Canada. It's like the Arctic. And I said, no, it's not, but it's okay. It felt like that way to you. It was, I know, but my grandson's bar mitzvah was not there. So thank you. I appreciate you sending me there. In any event, with the wind chill factor was below zero. And people came to shul and daven, and they had kids going to the Saturday night Motzei Shabbos learning program that they had for the kids. Was it cold? Sure, it was cold. It was cold even for the New Yorkers. You know what I'm saying? For the Jersey people, it was cold. But people that do what they do. So it's important to realize that Talmud consistency is an important idea. And we have to ask ourselves, what can I commit to consistently to do properly, which is a very nice idea. A lot of the Parsha deals with the garments of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. The Kohen Gadol, the high priest, the first one was Aaron, the brother of Moshe, and the Kohanim had special garments. The Kohen Gadol, the high priest, had 8 different types of garments, and the Kohen Hedyot, the regular Kohen, had 4 different garments, and we're going to talk about them. The regular Kohen had a shirt, pants, a belt, and a hat. Those were the 4 things he had to wear when he worked in the Mishkan and later on in the Beis Hamikdash. The Kohen Gadol had 8, which we're going to talk about them individually for a minute. Interesting, the word kasis lamor, going back to the oil for a second, squeezed to light, the word kasis is spelled kaf, saf, yud, saf. And you take that word, and the last 2, yud, saf, the numerical value of that is 410. That's how long the first temple was. And kasis, the first 2 letters, kaf, saf, were 420. That's how much the second temple existed. So embedded in the verse is a little prophetic idea of kasis, of squeezing the oil for the menorah. It's going to be 110, 410 for the first temple and 420 for the second temple. So let's talk about the different types of clothing that they had. There was so here's an artistic rendering of it. I'll show it on the Zoom first. I'm sorry? 473 in the art school has all of them, or just one? What?
Just a picture, it's not labeled like.
Of what? Yeah, but it has all of the Kohen wearing everything?
Yes.
Okay, so you can do it at 473 as well. So here's a little bit bigger, you can see it here. So here it has on top, it has the mitznefes, the hat, and then on top is the tzitz, the head plate here, that it were made out of gold. It says Kodesh Lashem, sanctified for God. Here it has the choshen, the breastplate, and here it has the avnet, the belt. Then there's the ephod, the big apron, and then Simon had pants underneath. Me'il, the outer shirt made out of blue wool with belts and pomegranates on the bottom, and Kesonish, the long shirt. So these were the 8 that the Kohen Gadol wore. And again, you have it in your art school publish. On what page was it you said?
473.
473. Thank you. So let's talk about them a little bit. The idea of this is to atone for people's sins. That's part of the job of what they had. And excuse me. Thank you. So the shirt atoned for murders that weren't prosecuted, the pants for sexual immorality, the me'il, the the blue shirt made out of blue wool that had the bells on the pomegranates. The pomegranates were quiet and the bells made noise. And the goal of the bells was when people would hear the Kohen Gadol walking, they'd hear ding, 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 ding. They'd hear the little bells on the bottom of his of the me'il, and that teaches us, excuse me, when to be quiet and when to be talking. Besides that, we learn, by the way, a separate law about the importance of knocking on the door before you come into a house, including your own. So if people maybe aren't dressed appropriately, that they know someone's coming in and they don't should be frightened. So it's important to knock on the doors of a house to let people know you're coming in. And the me'il atoned for speaking ill about other people, because again, it was sometimes quiet and sometimes making noise. The mitznefes, the hat, was to teach us about not being arrogant. Now, the choshen, the breastplate, why did Aaron deserve to wear that breastplate? And we're going to find that it's a very special breastplate, and we'll find that in a minute. It was made out of 12 stones, engraved with the names of the tribes in it. And it was used as the Urim v'Tumim, which means when they had questions to ask about what to do, the letters, God would send an answer through the letters in the stones lighting up. For example, if the question was, should we go to war? And the answer was low, no. So maybe the Lamed of Levi would light up and the Aleph in Reuven would light up. Okay, no batteries attached. Okay, it was miraculous stuff. But why did Aaron deserve to have this merit of wearing this? Because in his heart, he was not jealous of his younger brother Moshe, who took over. And because in his heart he wasn't, he had the merit of wearing the Urim v'Tumim, the koshen with the stones on it. And by the way, there's an important idea here that we should ask questions. The importance of having somebody you can ask questions to and feel comfortable with, who understands where you're coming from, at least partially, so that you can ask questions. Very, very important. I had once a woman call me and say, I ask you questions like, how do you know what the right thing to do is? She was asking me. So I mistakenly, jokingly said, well, I have a rabbinic dartboard that I use. And she says, what? I trust you with my life and you're using a rabbinic dartboard? I said, well, I can get you one at a good price. It took me 15 minutes to calm her down. I'm joking. Take it easy. There's no rabbinic dartboard. Take it easy. But in any event, what it really is prayer and Siyata Dishmaya, divine, hopefully some life experience and Torah knowledge and divine, and ultimately divine providence. Without Hashem's help, forget about it. But it just was a funny, at least for me, it was funny for a little bit. For her, it wasn't that funny. But it's very important to ask questions. And I mean, I see this time and time and time and time again. When people don't ask and make their own decisions, the consequences. Now, and I'm not saying when a person asks a rabbi, everything's going to always work out peachy. Not necessarily. But, we're not prophets. But at the same time, there's a better chance of things working out well. If you don't ask, then I've seen time and time again disaster after disaster, and it's sad. So the importance of having someone to turn to ask. Now we talked about that the ill atoned for lashon hara, speaking ill. The Chavetz Chaim Chavetz Chaim was a great rabbi who lived in the early 1900s, 1800s, and the early 1900s in the city of Radin. His name wasn't Chavetz Chaim. His name was Bisol Meir HaKohen Kagan. And he wrote many works, including the Chavetz Chaim, which is a book about the laws of not speaking ill about other people. There's more to talk about him another time, but and he said a very beautiful idea. He said, remember telegram, what that is? So everyone still remembers telegrams? How did you pay for the telegrams?
By word.
By word, right? So we're trying to figure out how can I write the telegram in a way that it doesn't cost me too much, minimize the risk, right? To get it cheaper, right? So the Chavetz Chaim says we should count our words just like a telegram because it costs. If we're not careful with our words and how we speak about others, it costs. So, which is a very, very powerful. Yes, question. Okay, good question. Thanks for asking. So the Beis Hamikdash was the temple that was built later on in the land of Israel by King David and King Solomon, and there were two temples, the first and the second temple, and we're waiting for the third one there. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, was the portable temple that they had in the desert. In the Parsha now, right? That's because they're still in the desert. They're not in the land of Israel. And there's an overlap of many of the things that they had in the Mishkan, they had in the Beis Hamikdash later on, like the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. That was the same, but this was a temporary temple that was actually mobile. They could take it apart and put it back together again and move it as the Jewish people were moving in the desert. Okay, thanks for asking. What about the Levium? The Levium helped out. The Levites, what did they do? What did they wear? And it was interesting. They sang, that's great, and they helped out, but they didn't have special clothing. Once when I was giving a lecture, I asked this question. So one guy said they wore Levi's, which was funny. And the truth of the matter is, the guy who invented
Levi Strauss
his name was probably Levi Strauss. All right, so he was probably a Levi, or at least his name was Levi. But in any event, the Levites didn't have any special clothing, and that's an important idea for us. The idea of wearing special clothing and special things need special garments. Something that's internal holiness needs greater garments. That's why the Kohanim had special clothing. That's why a Torah scroll has a covering of it, and that's why there's the laws of modesty, especially for women. Something with greater holiness needs that kind of thing. It's interesting because unfortunately in the press you'll hear about wardrobe malfunctions that unfortunately happen when there's performers performing. And you know what? If you wear something modest, then you don't have the problem of a wardrobe malfunction. It's a very interesting story about a woman named Wendy Shallett. She was a secular Jewish woman who was going to college, and in the college, the university decided to make unisex bathrooms. And again, she was secular, but she said, this doesn't make sense. It's not right. And she wrote an article about it. Eventually, the article got published in Commentary magazine. Eventually, it led to a book that she wrote called Return to Modesty, Girls Gone Mild. And it eventually brought her to Judaism. She became religious. She became religious based upon the laws of modesty, which is not a common thing, because modesty is something that some of the women struggle with when they get involved in Judaism. But to her, it was it didn't make sense to throw caution to the wind and have unisex bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and it's a very interesting idea that she became this way, and the idea is to dress as a reflection of who we are. And I'll end in a few minutes, and when I end, I'll tell you an interesting story. The idea is a person can be attractive, but not attracting. In Judaism, there's no idea of women should wear a burqa. That's not Judaism doesn't say it. Wear attractive things, but with modesty and tasteful. So the Parsha also talks about the Kohanim training to inaugurate for 7 days. See if there's something here that I want to share. Interesting. He says a very nice interpretation of the article had. You don't have to look it up. I'll read it on page 475, verse 6. Neza Kodesh, the crown of sanctity. This refers to the head plate, which was engraved holy to God. It is remarkable that the Kohen Gadol, who had no political or military power, is described as wearing a crown, while the crown is never mentioned in the chapter of the Jewish king. To the contrary, the king's distinguishing characteristic was that he had to write his own Torah scroll and carry it with him at all times. This phenomenon teaches us that the source of true power of the crown is the sanctity of the Kohen Gadol, but the king must derive his values from the Torah. Very beautiful, beautiful interpretation. Also, we find in the Parsha is the Tamid offering. Again, the word Tamid, consistent every day in the morning and in the late afternoon. And also there's the Mizbeach HaKtares, the altar for the spices. There were 2 altars, not the alter ego, that's something else. There was the altar for the animals that sacrificed that was in the yard, and then was inside, there was the golden small altar for the burning of the spices. The story I wanted to share with you is now the Ketores is, before I get to the story, the Ketores is the spices represent the atmosphere that we create. And that's an important idea. What do we allow into our homes, what we don't allow into our homes? I mentioned the story. I came to somebody's house once. They had asked me to check up a few things in their house, and I saw they had a picture of the Beatles on the wall. And I said, "You have kids, take it down. You shouldn't have it either." So why not? We got a present. I said, "That's not a value that you want to put on the wall. You want to put a picture of a great rabbi. That's who the kids should look up to, and not and that's an important idea." It's what we think about, what's in our the atmosphere we create in the home with a beautiful Shabbos meal, with singing, with Torah thoughts. That's an inspiration, and the atmosphere we create. I mean, it's sad. I know of somebody who's a executive for a major movie company, and his superior, who's a even bigger executive, and has a family. He invited the man to his house for a Shabbos meal. And I was like stunned when he told me this. He says, wow, you have a dining room table. We don't have a dining room table. And my guess is they eat, while they're watching something or on the computer, and they don't have a family meal together, which is very sad. It's not like, and he has the family and he has the means. He has a beautiful home. And have a dining room table. And by the way, even secular people, if you want to save your kids, they talk about having meals together during the meal. This is like nothing to do with Judaism, but it is Judaism because that's what we do on a Shabbos and a holiday. We have meals together. So it's just the atmosphere we create is very, very important. I'll conclude with just an interesting story. It's a secular story, but it has an important lesson for us. There was a woman who was the food critic for the LA Times. And she got an offer to become the food critic for the New York Times, which is, in the world out there, a step up. We could argue whether it is or not, but that's a separate issue. So she took the job, and she noticed that the restaurant she was going into, she was getting she was getting great service. She didn't understand it until she realized that it's New York. They're a little sharper. They had her picture up on the wall for when she came in. Whenever she came in, they made sure to give her great food and great service. So she realized that I can't do my job properly here. So she started disguising herself. She came in as a homeless lady. She came in as a this thing and she put on disguises so they didn't know it was her. And she was able to give a better critique of the restaurants because they served her the real way, not the fake way, when they thought she was the food critic. But eventually she quit. And the reason why she quit was because when I dressed a certain way, I became a little bit like that person and I wasn't being myself. And it just was, I thought it was, the book was, like I said, had interesting things about it. She had restaurants she liked and recipes she liked. For me, that wasn't interesting. And it wasn't a kosher book, so the restaurants weren't kosher and the food wasn't kosher necessarily. But the point that she made was fascinating. And we dress who we are. And you dress with modesty and you dress with we have the clothing of the Kohen Gadol here. You dress a certain way, it changes who you are. And it helps you. Again, is it a guarantee? No, you have nasty people that dress nicely too and modestly too, but it helps, and it helps create the atmosphere of how you want to be and how you want to present yourself to other people. And that's an important idea in life that is a lesson from the Parsha, that the clothing doesn't make the man or the woman, but helps the man and woman be the best that they can be. All right, we will stop here. Questions?
410 and 220 is what?
I'm sorry?
410 is the...
And 410 is the first temple, and 420 is the second temple. That's the word kus is to crush. When's the third coming? You know what? The Jewish Learning Change is non-profit. I'm not a prophet. I have no idea.
410
and 420. First temple 410, second temple 420. I'm sorry? Years. Yeah. Yes. Any questions, comments, thoughts? And like I said, in a few minutes we'll have the Purim class, and everyone's welcome to join as well. Well, I don't have cookie. You can take something from I probably have downstairs. I'm sure the cookies inside the kitchen. You're welcome to take.
Is the Purim class on Zoom?
It is on Zoom. I don't know if it's on this one or another one. So I don't know how to do this. Let me see if there's a way I can do this. If I can open up another Zoom at the same time. I don't know.
Probably not.
Huh?
He can.
Yes, I think he can too. I don't know. So then I'm just going to stay on this one because here's where you are. So we'll just leave this one on. The smarty pants. Okay. You have one that we can use? No.
I got what I hope.
Thanks a lot. That's very helpful for us.
I can make it back and forth in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm afraid of you're going to drive speeding with your motor. I don't want you to be dangerous.
Rabbi,
Yes,
are you still recording?
I can take it off if you want.
Yeah, yes, if you would. I think I have
I'll-
a story about clothing that might be.
I'll pause. Why don't you want it to be on the recording?
Ah,
We begin with Mishenichnes Adar Marvin B'Simcha. When the Hebrew month of Adar comes in, we increase joy. Very joyous holiday, and we'll talk about why and when. But let's talk about the story of Esther a little bit. The story happened many years ago. There was a king called Achashverosh, who was the king, and the Jewish people had been exiled from Israel. The first temple had been destroyed. The prophets had said that the Jewish people would go back to the land of Israel after 70 years of exile. According to his calculation, those years were over, and he was going to celebrate his kingdom, his kingship, and made a big party. He actually had his craftsmen make a replica of King Solomon's throne, which King Solomon's throne was a very special kind of throne that had mechanical things that could move, but they couldn't figure out how to do that. So he made an imitation, and he made a party for his advisors, and then he made a party for the people of Shushan. That was the capital city. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to go somewhere.
So go somewhere. If you gotta go, you gotta go.
Mhm.
Take the outline at least with you. And you have questions, Good. And his wicked wife, her name was Vashti, and she was wicked. She would force the Jewish girls that were working for her. She didn't let them go on Shabbat. She would beat them and really hurt them to force them to work on Shabbos. Excuse me. The king wanted to show off her beauty, and Vashti agreed, but unfortunately for her, she was stricken with pimples and a tail, and she could not show her beauty off because she wasn't very beautiful anymore. And this was God's punishment to her for how she treated the Jewish girls. And the king was upset that she didn't want to come. And the old rule of thumb, good communication in relationships is important. She didn't share what was going on. And she didn't share what was going on. And he asked his advisors, what should we do? And Haman advised that she should be killed for not listening to the king. That's a bad precedent. And Achashverosh listened to Haman, and Vashti was killed. And now Achashverosh wanted a new queen. So he sent everybody out, let's find a new queen. Now everybody's very excited to potentially be the queen. And but there was one woman who didn't want to be queen, and that was Esther. She in fact hid so that she shouldn't be chosen. Eventually she was found, and she was very distraught because she did not want to be chosen. So her uncle Mordechai told her, one thing you can do, look, you did the best you could, you hid, but they found you eventually. Don't tell her you're Jewish, and don't tell them that you're a descendant from King Saul, from the Jewish kings, because that's something that Achashverosh, who was not a descendant of kings, very much wants. Vashti was a descendant of Nebuchadnezzar, who destroyed the first temple. So, and lo and behold, Esther is chosen, and She's not happy, but that's what it is. It is what it is. But she maintained her Jewishness, and Mordechai would do whatever he could to help. But eventually, she gets Achashverosh to pick Mordechai as an advisor, not telling them that they have a connection. But he's impressed with Mordechai. Mordechai was one of the remaining members of the Sanhedrin, the chief court. And he becomes one of Achashverosh's advisors, which allows him to come into the palace, and he's able to check on Esther more, etc., etc. One fine day, he's sitting in the garden studying Torah in the palace, and he hears Bigsan and Seresh, two guards of the king, plotting to kill Achashverosh. Now, as a member of the Sanhedrin, they had to be somewhat fluent in the 70 major languages. Why? Can anyone guess? Understand if people are coming to say testimony, to be able to understand what they're saying. They're saying that Reuben killed Shimon, but they're saying it in Swahili. What are you going to do? So they had to be somewhat fluent in all the languages. So Mordechai understood what Bigsan and Seresh were talking about and reported it to Esther. And Esther said, Mordechai overheard the plot to kill the king. And they investigated, and the king was saved. And it was written down in the king's book. What ends up happening is that in the meantime, Haman is very upset because he's given the title of the chief advisor of the king, and he wants people to bow down to him. And Mordechai isn't going along with the program. Now, our sages tell us that Haman had idols on his clothing. Was another reason why he didn't want to bow down to him. But be that as it may, Haman is really upset, and he's very upset, and he eventually offers Achashverosh money that he should not only kill out Mordechai, but kill out all the Jewish people. And Achashverosh agrees. He says bad things about the Jewish people, and Achashverosh, no sweet guy on his own, he goes along with it and gives him a signet ring and declares that on the 13th day, Haman decides to do a lottery to determine which is the best month to kill out the Jewish people and which is the best day. And that's the word for lottery is pur. Now you know where the word Purim comes from. It comes from the word lots. That's what Haman drew. And he drew the month of Adar. And he said, that's a good month because Moshe died in that month. So it's a bad month for the Jewish people, not knowing Moshe was also born that month. And the 13th day, that's the day the Jews should be killed out. And notes were sent out to all the Jewish, to all the communities in Achashverosh's vast kingdom. And the Jews were very, very frightened. Now, I have to back up a little bit. I skipped a little part, which is important. There was a party Achashverosh made for the people of Shushan to celebrate his being king for so many years, for these years, and the new throne he had, and that the Jews he thought would never. And there was a big question among the Jewish people, should we go to this party or not? Mordechai said, don't go. Even if the food will be kosher, not an appropriate environment to be in. And the other Jews said, nah, Mordechai is being too religious, nah, we should go. So many listened to Mordechai, but many did not, and they went. And unfortunately, Mordechai was right, and the Almighty was not happy with them, because Achashverosh used the opportunity of this party to wear the clothing of the Kohen Gadol that had been taken when the temple was destroyed, and to use vessels from the Beis Hamikdash, from the temple, because he was mocking all of this. So now there's this terrible decree against the Jewish people to annihilate the Jewish people on the 13th day of Adar. And the Jewish people...
They didn't know that Achashverosh didn't know that the Jews were Jews?
He knew the Jews were Jews, but he didn't know Esther was a Jew.
He knew that some of his tribe was Jewish.
Yeah, he knew Mordechai was a Jew. Mordechai didn't hide it, sure. He had people, the Jewish people, and that's why he gave Haman permission to kill him out. So what ends up happening is, obviously, the Jewish people are praying. Mordechai speaks to Esther and tells her, this is your opportunity. You have to go to the king and you have to plead our case. And Esther is very hesitant because she says, if the king doesn't call you, if he doesn't want to see you, you can be killed. You can't you can't come whenever you want. He has to, if you come to him and he didn't order you to come, if he touches you with his silver scepter, then you're okay. If not, but Mordechai says, look, you got to do what you got to do. And you have to do this. And she agrees and she invites. And initially he doesn't want to look at her, but the angel turns his head and sticks the thing. She's okay. He invites Achashverosh and Haman to a party. It's a party. Who doesn't want to go to a party? So they enter the party. And Achashverosh says, I'll give you up to half of the kingdom. What do you want? I want you to come to another party tomorrow. Makes another party, prepares another party. And in the meantime, Haman is still upset that Mordechai doesn't want to bow down to him. So he says, I don't want to wait. I'm going to go to Achashverosh and get special permission to hang Mordechai separately. And he goes to the palace, and Achashverosh can't sleep. And when he's looking through his diary, he finds that it says there that Mordechai saved his life. And he never rewarded Mordechai. And he's upset. No, maybe something else is going on, and people are not going to tell me because I didn't show any favor to Mordechai. So he finds out, who's out there? Haman's there. Come in, Haman. I want to ask you a question. He says, yeah, what can I do for you, Your Majesty? Haman was there waiting to see when he could speak to the king about killing Mordechai. He says, what do you think we should do to a person who the king wants to give honor to? And Haman thinks, who's the king talking about? Must be me. And he says, take the king's clothing and the king's horse and ride him around town and let everyone say, this is what happened to the person the king wants to give honor to. So the king says, great, do that to, yes, Mordechai. Mordechai, I hate Mordechai. And Haman is forced to take Mordechai around. He has to give him a haircut and because Mordechai is wearing sackcloth and is praying for the Jewish people, and he has to dress him and give him a haircut and give him, and he takes him around town. And even Mordechai, Haman's daughter, sees this, and she assumes that it's Mordechai who's pulling the thing, so she throws garbage on her father Haman, and it's a bad scene. And even Mordechai's Haman's wife, Zeresh, says this is not a good sign. Now, they came up with hanging him. That's what they wanted to do, because they figured other stuff, the Jewish people had been saved from drowning, from the splitting of the sea, fire, lions. Daniel was put into the lions then. So we have to, hanging, that's a good one. So what's ended up happening is that Haman goes to the party, all disheveled, all last minute. And Esther says, when the king says, what do you want? He says, I want my life and I want my people's life. He says, why? Who's threatening you? She says, Haman is threatening me. And what ends up happening is that Haman is hung on the tree that he had prepared for Mordechai, as well as Mordechai's 10 sons. And Haman's 10 sons, Haman's 10 sons are killed. And Mordechai and Esther come to King Achashverosh, and they plead on behalf of the Jewish people, and they give him permission to fight against those that come against them, and that's the decree that's given out, and the Jewish people are saved. Now, what's fascinating about this story is the name is Purim, lots. Seems quite random, and there's something else fascinating, and that is something missing from the Purim story, and that is God's name. In the time Megillas Esther, it's a holy book. God's name isn't mentioned once. It's alluded to in the text when the word says Hamelech, the king, but It doesn't say it all, and that's the power of the Purim story and what's this beautiful celebration. One of the things about it is because it's showing the miracles that take place that you don't see. And the miracles where it's not a blatant miracle, it looks like a story. I just told you a nice story. I don't hear God in it, but God is there. He's pulling the strings from behind. And that's one of the reasons why when Adar comes in, we're extra happy, because it's not it's a time of exile. The Jewish people are in exile. They're in Persia, but they're saved by the Almighty, and that connects to us in being able to understand that we have God's connection with us is not stopped. Now, I'm going to go through some of the laws and customs of it. So one thing that's not on the outline that I'm going to mention is this Shabbos is Parshat Zachar. We remember to read about the wicked nation of Amalek. So that's going to be a special Torah reading after the regular Torah. I'm going to read that. It's very short, just a few minutes. So we're going to have two readings actually at JLE. One at around 10:10, the other one at around 11:15. So that if people have kids or whatever, they can come and listen to it. Again, they're very short. It takes 5 minutes, the whole reading. So that's about remembering Amalek, because Haman was a descendant of the wicked nation of Amalek. On Monday, March 2nd, that's next Monday, not this Monday, the fast begins at 5:07 a.m. So if you must have your morning coffee, it has to be before 5:07. During morning prayers, I'm now on the outline if you want to follow. Add prayers of supplication, 13 attributes of mercy. We say Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. We do a special reading in the morning and the afternoon, and we add Anenu in the silent devotion in the afternoon service. A person who has to take medication should take the meds. You can take a little bit of water. A pregnant woman or somebody who's sick does not have to fast. If you have more questions, you can ask. It's customary in the afternoon to give a half shekel. What's a half shekel? You don't have to go to Israel. Dave, you bring any shekels to America? No, I'm kidding. You don't have to give it. The custom is to use half the denomination of the coin of the country we're in. So in America, it's a $50. And what we do here at JLE, and what you can do at home if you don't have $50, is we put 3 $50 in a plate, and you take $1.50, put it into the plate, pick up the $50, and then put it back down into the plate. And it's an exchange of, this way you're giving $1.50, remembering the half shekel that the Jewish people gave, the half of the denomination that the Jewish people gave. And there's going to be other charity plates out, and it's an auspicious time to give charity for other worthy Jewish causes. That'll be at the afternoon. So we're going to have Mincha afternoon services here at JLE at 5:30. And then afterwards, we have Ma'ariv evening services and the reading of the Megillah. The fast ends at 6:31, though ideally we should wait till after the Megillah reading. Now, the Megillah reading is the story of Esther. That's what's called Megillas Esther. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what the Megillah looks like. It's handwritten on parchment, written by a scribe. This is a special Megillah. It belonged to my brother of blessed memory. Yes, it's Sibin Rabbi Sakadaiv. Memory be a blessing. And this is an interesting Megillah. I'm going to come closer to show it to you. Those of you on Zoom can see it. By the way, this is called a Hamelech Megillah. Hamelech means the king. Again, as I mentioned, that alludes to God, also with Achashverosh, but here Hamelech. And here they made this Megillah that every column, almost every column, starts with the word Hamelech, the king. Hamelech, the king. So twice on Purim, once at night and once in the day. And we listen to every word as it's being read. I'm going to walk around and give you a sample. You can touch it if you want. You can take a look at it.
This one, no.
Oh, then I can look at that.
Oh, there, I'm out, yeah, yeah,
I'm LA.
I'm out. Here. I happen to have 4 shekels. You can give one to everybody.
We're not doing it yet. We're not using shekels. I thought we were using half dollars.
I know, but I mean, just for fun, they can have it as well.
Okay, that's something else.
Souvenir.
If we go to Israel, do it there. Okay, so so evening services, we add a prayer called Al Hanisim, which deals with the miracles. During the silent devotion and during the grace after meals, it's the bottom of page 270 or top of 276. If you want to get a sitter, I can show you where it is. If you forget it, you don't have to repeat Shemona Esra. Also during the grace after meals, bottom of 186 in the handy art scroll. So that's, and then we read the Megillah. So the Megillah readings, as I mentioned, 6:30 sharp and 8:15 at JLE. It's in the back of the article Chumash, page 1252 through 1261. We make 3 blessings. On the blessing of the mitzvah of the reading of the Megillah. The second blessing is the one who made miracles for our forefathers in those days during this time. And the third blessing is that we're grateful that we've reached this time of the year. And the blessings are found in the page before 1252. It's not number 1251, but that's what it would be. So you can see that in the back of the Chumash, if you'd like. Tuesday morning, we have morning services. We'll have it at 7:30 here. We do our tefillin. We say Al Hanisim again. We add that prayer in the Shemona Esrei. And we have a Torah reading. And then we read the Megillah a second time. Now, the Megillah reading requires listening to every word carefully. Different than the Shabbos Torah reading. Shabbos Torah reading, it'd be nice to listen to every word, but you're not required. If you miss a word or you have to use the restroom, you can do that. But it requires listening to every word. And if you miss a word, then you should try to say it quietly to yourself and catch up to where the reader is up to. And the custom is that when the wicked person Haman's name is mentioned, the kids make noise. Haman. Okay. Now, actually, the Torah readers, or the Megillah readers, I should say, are usually very careful. They'll try to say Haman fast, so everyone hears the whole word. I heard a story. It was like sad, but it was beautiful at the same time. That there was a place in Baltimore that person was reading the Megillah, and somebody was recording it because he needed to prepare for him. He was going to do a reading the next day. And when he listened to the recording, he realized that the man missed the word. If you miss a word, it doesn't work. So they called back the entire community, and a few hundred people came back to shul to hear the entire Megillah all over again, which is very special, So we try not to miss a word, and that's why when they bang, Haman, sometimes after they bang, he'll say the word Haman again, so that just in case someone missed it, the kids started banging early. There are certain sentences that are said aloud in the Megillah, said first by the congregation and then by by the reader. Some people follow along in the Megillah. Others just do it in the Chumash. Now, what happens is the art scroll will bold the words that are said aloud. For example, Ish Yehudi Har B'Shushan Habiru Ishmael Mordechai ben Yoav ben Shimi ben Kish Ishimini. There was a man from Yehuda who lived in Shushan. His name was Mordechai, the son of Yoav, the son of Shimi, and it was from the tribe of Binyamin. So there are certain places that in the synagogue where they do it. And if you don't say along, that's fine. You can just listen. And now, as far as kids coming, it's great. It's a lot of fun for the kids, but you have to watch out. It has to be kids that can sit as well quietly. A lot of times I had someone said brought a baby. It said, big mistake. No, baby's sleeping. Baby's fine. Yeah, but the first time they say Haman, and guess what happened? Haman. So the person had to go out of the shul, and that was a problem. All right, on the second side of the outline. Yes. You want an outline?
You're supposed to listen, but are you able to read along, or is this?
Well, I would not recommend read along in the English. I would recommend read along in the Hebrew. That's what I would say, and just do the best to follow along that way. And if you miss a word, you can say it if you can. But if you're not, just listen, following that way. But I don't recommend reading the translation of the commentaries then. Okay. What other mitzvahs do we have? So first of all, there's no working and no eulogies and no fasting on Purim. And also when we make the Shechianu blessing, hello. When we make the Shechianu blessing, wow, long time no see. Good to see it. When you make the Shechianu blessing during the day, it's not only for the Megillah, because we made the Shechianu for the night before. So we make for the mitzvahs of the day, which we're going to go through what some of the mitzvahs are. So mitzvahs of the day include Mishlach Manas, which is 2 different kinds of edible foods ready to eat to give to at least one friend. Box of cookies, bottle of wine, a bottle of juice, cake, whatever you want. Could be fruit, whatever you'd like. Some people go really crazy giving a lot. I do recommend that give it to somebody who could use it. And what I mean by that is maybe a neighbor who's alone, or maybe Dave, ask them why they're not in class. Like somebody who's alone, somebody who maybe somebody who you're not on such good terms with would be a nice way to take an approach. So now some people go really out of town. They make a theme and they make a whole thing, and it's very lovely. But you don't have to do that. Yes. Well, how just? Yeah, it's fine. Not a problem. Then there's a very important mitzvah, the most important mitzvah, Matanas Levyonim, gifts to the poor. And that's where money is given for at least 2 different poor people that they can buy a meal for themselves. So if you'd like me to help you distribute money for that, I'm happy to do that for you. I unfortunately know enough people that could use the help, enough organizations that are collecting for people that need. So if you want to give me money to give for the poor, all of it goes straight to the poor. We don't take any service fees or service charges. So all of that goes to the poor. So that's another very important mitzvah of Matanas Levyonim. And ideally, we should give it so that they can, they should have it that day. And another mitzvah is a su'uda, a meal, to have a yom a Purim meal, which is wine, chicken or meat, just like they had a meal, and we add alanis and the grace after meals. Now, there's some people who drink liquor and get a little tipsy, but there's no real reason for liquor. Really, the mitzvah is wine, because that's what the meal had, wine. The meals with the Jewish people that shouldn't have gone to the meal, and the meal that Esther made for them. So drinking wine, and some people get a little tipsy, which is okay. So let's go through some of the mitzvahs again. There's listening to the Megillah by night and by day. At least food, different types of edibles to at least one friend. Gifts to the poor for at least a meal for each person, for at least 2 poor people. And the more you do, the merrier. It's better. And having a su'uda, a poor meal. Now, some people start the meal too late. It has to be before nightfall. So that's important. And many people get dressed up, costumes. But the costumes have to be appropriate. They have to be appropriate for it. You don't have to be in the costume, but it's a nice festive. My wife told me that someone sent her a picture of the store in New Jersey, which is a very religious neighborhood. All the non-Jews were dressed up with Hasidic hats today, just for the Purim spirit. It was cute. But be that as it may, okay, that's a good question. You mean the night before? You don't have to have a meal, but some people do make something. But you do obviously have to break the fast, but you don't have to have a meal. But there are people do make a mini meal. Yeah, but that's appropriate. And then again, there's a Suda, a Yom Tov, a regular festive meal that usually will take place the late afternoon of Purim Day, which will be Tuesday. Right, Tuesday. March 3rd. Now, a big mitzvah is simcha, to be happy. And here I give you the word simcha means happy, and I give you a list here of ways of how to be happy. Number one is S is smile, fake it till you make it, even if you're not happy. I is it's up to me to choose to be happy, even if my circumstances aren't perfect. M, make a gratitude journal. C is do chesed, acts of loving kindness. H is Hashem, to remember God's in charge. And A, appreciate I am a Jew, or if you're not a Jew yet, that I want to be a Jew. So that's something I'm striving for. So these are nice ideas of how to be besimcha. So we're having simcha, joy, and a meal, and gifts to the poor, and food to others, and listening to the Megillah. Any questions, thoughts, comments? The Avionim, yes.
The day before Purim starts, like what day?
No, it's all on Purim. That's the mitzvah. Those are the mitzvahs of the day. Giving the food, giving food packages that day, and giving money. Now you can give the money earlier, and as I said, I'm taking money for poor. If you want to give me, and it'll be distributed on Purim for you. You can do that. All right. That's an important question. Those are all the mitzvahs of the day, and the meal. You can't have the meal today. You have to have it on Purim. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
The second, the 5 p.m.
I'm sorry. The fast of Esther begins 5:07 a.m. Right? It says it on the paper. And like I said, if you want to send in some money, just write down it's for the money for the poor, and it'll go directly for the poor. Any questions? Going once, twice, 3 times. Sold to the man with the smile. All right, we'll stop here. Take care. Very happy and festive Purim for everybody. Again, we'll have regular class next Sunday, and Purim is starts fast of Esther. Shabbos is the reading of Zohar. Monday is the fast of Esther. Monday night is Purim. And there's also something called Shushan Purim. What happened? I neglected to mention that, which I should, which is that the people of Shushan got an extra day to fight against the enemies, and therefore any city that is walled from the times of Joshua, they celebrate Purim the day later. That's why in Yerushalayim, Purim is not going to be Tuesday; it'll be Tuesday night and Wednesday. So that's called Shushan Purim for the city of Shushan, special for the city of Shushan. Walled cities from the times of Joshua, they celebrate a day later. All right, we will stop here.
Well, thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome. Have a happy Purim. Again, we have regular class next Sunday, God willing.
You're what?
Regular class next Sunday, God willing.
This last minute.
Okay, fine. We'll pass it on. Thank you. We'll pass it. Is it for Purim? Yeah, for the Purim. Good. We'll pass it. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. How have you been? How's the family? Everyone's well?